Trump changes stance on Russia and Ukraine at key moment.
US President Donald Trump called Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky very kind following their sideline meeting at the NATO Summit, while also adopting a noticeably tougher tone toward Russia. Vladimir Putin really needs to put an end to this conflict. The current level of casualties is something we haven't seen in a long time, Trump stated. He also revealed that the Russian president had offered to mediate the conflict between Iran and Israel, but Trump responded, "No, help me deal with what's happening with Russia instead." President Trump has frequently shifted his tone toward both Russian and Ukrainian leadership. A recent example was a tense Oval Office exchange with Zelensky in February, which led to a temporary suspension of US military and intelligence support to Kyiv. In contrast, Trump had initially taken a softer approach toward President Putin, with whom he has held multiple phone calls. The US even engaged in direct peace talks with Russia's negotiating team. However, in recent weeks, Trump has grown increasingly frustrated with Putin's maximalist demands and refusal to agree to a ceasefire. During discussions at the NATO Summit, two informed sources said President Trump expressed deep frustration over the situation in Ukraine, noting that things are spiraling out of control. President Zelensky described his meeting with President Trump as long and substantive. The two leaders, he said, covered all the truly important issues, including how to protect the people of Ukraine and how to achieve a ceasefire and real peace. Mr. Trump denied that a ceasefire was on the table, yet still called the nearly hour-long conversation very nice and focused on Ukraine's overall situation. "I just wanted to see how he was doing. He's actually very kind," the US president said of Zelensky, adding, "He's fighting a very tough conflict. It's a brutal battle." Mr. Trump acknowledged that the pair had gone through a difficult time, an allusion to their Oval Office confrontation in February that temporarily halted US military and intelligence support for Kyiv. "My takeaway this time is really positive, and I know President Zelensky wants this conflict to end," Trump continued. "I think now is a great moment to finish it. I'll speak with President Putin and see whether we can bring it to a close." The US leader also stressed that the Ukraine crisis shows the urgency of rebuilding our defense industrial base, and that the United States and its allies cannot depend on foreign adversaries for critical minerals. Kyiv and Washington signed a minerals agreement last month, after an earlier deal scheduled for Washington was scrapped amid the Oval Office dispute. Trump and Zelensky had met again in April, speaking privately in St. Peter's Basilica during Pope Francis's funeral. They were slated to meet at last week's G7 summit, but the US president departed the event early.
Trump did not discuss Russia-Ukraine ceasefire with Zelensky.
US President Donald Trump denied discussing a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky during their meeting on the sidelines of the NATO Summit. According to Trump, the 50-minute meeting did not delve into the details of any ceasefire agreement, although both sides expressed a desire to see the conflict come to an end. The US president said he plans to speak further with Russian President Vladimir Putin to push for a resolution, but has not set a specific timeline. Speaking at a press conference after the meeting, Trump acknowledged that resolving the war in Ukraine is difficult and admitted there are some disagreements between himself and President Zelensky. He also revealed that Ukraine is eager to receive more Patriot air defense systems, though Washington is still evaluating the request, citing domestic defense priorities. Trump's remarks appeared to contrast with earlier statements from Kyiv. President Zelensky had described the meeting as long and substantive, saying the two leaders had discussed possible paths to achieving real peace. When asked about his previous claim that he could end the Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours, Trump said the comment was sarcastic. He admitted that ending the war would not be easy, describing Russian President Vladimir Putin as tougher than expected, and acknowledging that he has some issues with President Zelensky as well. In response to a question about whether the US would contribute to the $5 billion in military aid pledged to Ukraine by other NATO members, Trump reiterated his stance that the war must end. In a separate exchange, a BBC journalist asked whether the US would sell Patriot missile systems to Ukraine. Trump replied that the systems are very hard to come by and that the US needs them too. He noted that the US is currently providing Patriot systems to Israel, but said Washington would see whether we can provide some to Ukraine.